It's fascinating, isn't it? How some individuals possess this almost uncanny ability to influence their surroundings without uttering a single demand. No raised voices, no pleading, just a subtle withdrawal, and suddenly the atmosphere shifts. People around them find themselves questioning, pursuing, and feeling a palpable change. Now, consider applying this to your own life. What if you paused before reacting to every little thing? What if you chose the stillness of silence over an immediate response, a strategic retreat instead of an impulsive outburst? What do you imagine would unfold? This very point lies in the power of unavailability. When you cease to be perpetually accessible, emotionally, physically, psychologically, the world around you can enter a state of disequilibrium. This is because others have grown accustomed to navigating you through your reactions, your impulses, your predictable nature. But the moment you opt for withdrawal, the dynamic shifts dramatically. Those who believed they had you figured out suddenly realize the depths they hadn't even begun to fathom. Carl Jung wisely noted, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves." Reflect on this. When you become less reachable, who is it that truly becomes agitated? Who feels the need to provoke you, simply to elicit some flicker of emotion? Their reaction speaks volumes about their own needs and, more importantly, reveals the extent to which you've unknowingly been allowing them to pull your strings. You've been conditioned to prioritize others, to readily offer your time and energy to maintain harmony and avoid losing people who, in their essence, were never truly aligned with you. With every forced yes, every knee-jerk response, every surge of emotion, you surrender a fragment of your vital energy. And what remains at the day's end? A weariness, a frustration, an inexplicable emptiness. The reason? You've been overly generous with those who didn't warrant even a moment of your precious stillness. This isn't about turning your back on the world, it's about choosing yourself. It's about embracing what Jung termed individuation, the journey toward becoming a complete, authentic whole. This process begins with the profound realization that silence can resonate with more power than a torrent of words. That withdrawal, when rooted in awareness rather than avoidance, is a potent act of self-possession. So, look within. How much longer will you allow the emotional tides of others to dictate your responses? How much longer will you react like a marionette to every tug on your sensitivities? Perhaps it's time to sever those cords, to step back, to cultivate an aura of mystery. Because the instant you cease being perpetually available, the entire landscape shifts. Why? Because constant availability breeds predictability, and predictability transforms you into a tool. People begin to treat you like an emotional emergency button, pressing it for attention, solace, or validation, only to then place you back on the shelf until the next perceived need arises. This dynamic often remains veiled because you're caught in the illusion that being present for everyone will somehow guarantee their presence for you. But the reality is often starkly different. Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we adopt to gain acceptance, love, and recognition. It's this very mask that often compels us toward over-availability. You might say, it's okay, even when you're suffocating. Reply to messages instantly, even when utterly depleted. Offer explanations, justifications, and defenses, as if you owe the world an accounting of yourself. But the truth is, the more you position yourself at the center of others' dramas, the more you fade from your own. Being perpetually available is a subtle form of self-neglect. It's a disguised attempt to seek approval, evade rejection, and control how others perceive you. But this control comes at a steep cost. Your inner peace and your vital energy, dispersed as if it were an inexhaustible resource when, in fact, it is finite and precious. Those who demand your constant availability don't truly desire you. They desire what you provide: validation, companionship, distraction, emotional comfort. But the moment you shift, when you establish a boundary, when you decline to react, these same individuals may become irritated, accusatory, even label you as weird. This isn't because you've fundamentally changed, it's because you've ceased to be a convenient function for them. And here's the stark reality. The more readily available you are, the less value others tend to assign you. What is abundant often becomes an emotional doormat. Respect isn't given freely, it's often earned. Value isn't placed on what is perpetually within reach. So pause and reflect. Who genuinely merits your time, your attention, your presence, your listening ear? Or, more pointedly, who warrants your absence? But before answering that, we must address a fundamental question. Why do we react so intensely, so readily? What fuels this almost automatic urge to respond, justify, and please? The answer, as Jung suggested, lies in what he termed psychic energy, and that is the crucial topic we'll explore next. Because your energy is your most valuable currency, and if you don't learn to safeguard it, others will inevitably deplete it for their own purposes. Jung viewed the human psyche not as a passive machine, simply reacting to external stimuli without consequence. Instead, he envisioned our minds as intricate energy systems, where every thought, emotion, and action draws upon this finite resource. The critical question then becomes, are you consciously directing your energy, or are you allowing the external world to dictate its flow? Every impulsive reaction is a dissipation of psychic energy. When you feel compelled to defend yourself against criticism that doesn't even warrant your attention, when you rise to every bait of provocation to prove your point, when you engage in futile arguments, when you strive to please those who offer no genuine appreciation, you are expending your inner strength on endeavors that offer no nourishment in return, and Jung's insight remains potent. That which you resist persists. The more you react, the more entangled you become. Individuals who consistently feel emotionally drained are not inherently weak. Their energy is simply misdirected, and what befalls someone in a state of perpetual exhaustion? They become vulnerable, and vulnerability makes you easy prey for manipulative, opportunistic, and emotionally needy individuals who possess an uncanny ability to sense when someone lacks the capacity to protect their energy, who react to every stimulus, and who are perpetually trying to fix the world around them. They will exploit this. Jung posited that a healthy psyche is adept at containing its energy. This entails knowing when to say no without succumbing to guilt, when to remain silent without feeling like a coward, and when to observe before acting. True power doesn't reside in reactive speed. It lies in the conscious choice of when and how to engage. This level of self-mastery is attainable only through profound self-awareness, the ability to recognize your own ingrained impulses. How many sleepless nights have you endured, replaying unresolved conversations? How many hours have you spent dwelling on what you should have said or attempting to decipher why someone treated you poorly? This is your precious psychic energy being relentlessly drained without any return on investment. You are keeping alive echoes that should have long faded and perpetuating dynamics that persist solely because you insist on reacting. Psychic energy, when well guarded, acts as a powerful force field, creating an undeniable presence. You enter a room and command respect without uttering a word. But when poorly managed, you become invisible, reactive, fragile, and the world often shows little compassion for those who readily yield their energy. Therefore, begin to observe your own triggers. What compels you to react automatically? What disrupts your inner equilibrium? These are the precise points where your energy leaks, and these are the areas demanding your conscious attention. The goal isn't to become cold or indifferent, but to cultivate selectivity, to become the sovereign ruler of your own inner domain. And here lies one of Jung's profound insights. When you consciously conserve your energy, you disrupt the projections that others cast upon you. And this can be deeply unsettling for them, because now we venture into the shadowy realm of silent manipulation. In the next part, we will delve into how opportunistic individuals thrive on your energy and why your unavailability can completely dismantle these manipulative games. Prepare to meet the gaze of those who have habitually drained you without your conscious awareness. You might believe you are in control, that your reactions are deliberate choices, but the truth often resides in the shadows. Many of your emotional responses are deeply ingrained programs, and those who understand these patterns can manipulate you with surprising ease. Opportunistic individuals don't need to resort to raised voices, threats, or forceful tactics. They simply press the emotional buttons you've left exposed, and you react predictably every time. Carl Jung termed this psychological mechanism projection, the unconscious process through which individuals attribute their own unacceptable thoughts, feelings, and impulses to others. But there's a less recognized facet of this phenomenon. While others project onto you, you also become a receptacle for these projected images. And the more emotionally available you are, the more you become a blank canvas for these projections. Think of that friend who only appears during a crisis, that partner who perpetually needs you to be the rescuer, that person who showers you with praise only as long as you serve their needs. None of this is accidental. They aren't relating to the authentic you. They are interacting with their idea of you, the role you've implicitly agreed to play. And why do you agree? Often out of a fear of disappointing, a fear of not being loved, a fear of abandonment. The most potent manipulation doesn't occur through overt aggression. It thrives in the quiet corridors of guilt, when you feel an unspoken obligation to the other, when you believe you need to be available, need to help, need to understand, even when it erodes your inner landscape. And here's the crux. The manipulator doesn't need to control your actions directly. They simply need you to keep reacting in the same predictable ways. But when you disrupt this pattern, when you start saying no, responding with silence, withdrawing instead of offering explanations, the projections begin to crumble. The mask they have placed upon you falls away, leaving them unsettled because they no longer recognize the reflection they once relied upon. Worse, they are now compelled to confront themselves, a prospect not everyone is prepared for. Your unavailability becomes a perceived threat because it forces others to confront their own internal voids. The silence you offer amplifies the internal noise they desperately try to void. And then comes the backlash, the criticism, the emotional drama. This isn't necessarily because you are wrong, but because you've ceased to function as a convenient mirror for them. Jung wisely stated, "We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." When you withdraw, when you cease feeding the familiar cycle, the other person's shadow begins to emerge, and this can be unbearable for those who have always used you as an emotional escape route. But what about you? Are you prepared to navigate the discomfort of being misunderstood, rejected, or even attacked for the sake of protecting your own boundaries? Are you ready to endure the silence that follows the break? Because it is precisely within that silence that a new form of power is forged. And that is the profound topic we will explore next. Why silence can be the most potent force in the human psyche, and how it fundamentally alters the dynamic between you and the world. The modern world is a cacophony of voices, each vying for attention, eager to respond instantly, to win pointless arguments, and to assert their perspective, often at the expense of their own inner peace. Yet, there exists a power known to few and mastered by even fewer, the power of silence. Not the silence of passivity or fear, but a conscious, strategic, profoundly lucid silence. A silence that isn't an absence, but rather an amplified presence. Jung perceived silence not as a void, but as fertile ground for inner transformation. When you cease reacting impulsively, you begin to truly observe. And through observation, you discern patterns that previously eluded your awareness. Recurring emotional cycles, manipulative tactics, and ingrained patterns of self-sabotage. Silence cultivates lucidity, and lucidity can be unsettling for those who seek to maintain control over you. Have you noticed how some individuals become agitated when you don't immediately respond, when you refrain from offering explanations, when you simply step back? It's often not because they genuinely miss you, but because your silence disrupts their narrative control. While you engage in conversation, you remain within their game. But when you embrace silence, you alter the rules, unsettling anyone who thrives on your reactivity. True silence isn't merely the absence of speech, it's the mastery of one's own energy. It's the deliberate refusal to be dragged down by another's emotional turbulence. It's the conscious choice to abstain from battles that offer no genuine value. Jung believed that individuation, the journey toward becoming your authentic self, necessitates this very act of distancing, because only in the stillness of silence can you truly hear your own inner voice, unburdened by the clamor of the external world. But be aware, silence carries a cost. It may create distance between you and those who only valued you for the role you played. It may render you incomprehensible to those who only perceived you through the lens of their own projections. You might be perceived as cold, distant, or arrogant. But these are often the reactions of those who never sought to engage with your depth, only with your utility. And here's a profound truth. The more you mature, the more selective you become with your words, recognizing that each utterance is an energetic investment, and not everyone warrants access to your inner world. Sometimes silence isn't a retreat, it's an act of sovereignty, the language of those who no longer feel the need to prove their worth. Silence can be deeply uncomfortable because it compels the other person to confront their own thoughts, their own internal noise. This discomfort often reveals more about them than any argument you could construct. You don't need to justify your absence. It speaks for itself, and those who feel threatened by it often reveal the extent to which they relied on your imbalance to maintain their own sense of control. But the most potent form of silence isn't the one that unsettles others. It's the silence that reconstructs you from within. It's the stillness that connects you to something beyond external validation. Within this internal sanctuary, free from the demands of others, you begin to reclaim your vital energy, to reconnect with your core essence. And this is precisely what we will explore next. Because simply silencing external noise isn't enough. You must relearn how to consciously direct your energy, choosing where it flows, where it remains, and most importantly, where it should never be wasted. It's time to cultivate selectivity within the very depths of your being. It's one thing to grasp these concepts intellectually, but true transformation hinges on practical application. If you continue to utter yes when your inner voice screams no, if you keep responding to messages that agitate you, if you persist in engaging in empty conversations and maintaining relationships solely out of inertia, then awareness remains merely another form of self-deception. Genuine change ignites when you resolutely decide to become selective. This necessitates emotional discipline. Conscious unavailability isn't about adopting a cold, arrogant, or indifferent demeanor. It's about ceasing to be accessible to everyone, at any time, for any reason. It's about reclaiming dominion over your own energy, your own time, your own peace. And this journey begins with small, deliberate actions. Pausing before responding, breathing before reacting, gracefully exiting a discussion before it descends into chaos, turning off your phone without guilt, and simply stating, "Not today, I'm not interested," or "I won't get involved." But here's the most crucial element. You owe no one an explanation for your absence, no justification for your silence. Your primary obligation is to yourself, and for many, this can be an unforgivable act, because when you refuse to explain yourself, you strip away their power to keep you confined within an emotional narrative where you are perpetually the helpful, understanding, and accessible one. Jung understood that every authentic journey of individuation involves a period of isolation, not a depressive isolation, but a sacred one, a time of inner retreat where you relearn to heed your own inner voice, unburdened by the world's interference, where you rebuild your identity not based on the reflections of others, but from your own unwavering center. Want a reliable gauge of your progress? Observe who begins to distance themselves when you become more reserved. Notice who attempts to provoke you when you cease reacting. Pay attention to those who accuse you of having changed when you finally start to prioritize your own well-being. These aren't indicators that you're on the wrong path. They are evidence that you've begun to liberate yourself. Embracing unavailability can feel uncomfortable initially. You might grapple with guilt, believing you're being selfish or too harsh. But this discomfort is often a natural byproduct of the deconstruction process. You've likely spent a significant portion of your life conditioned to place yourself last. It's natural that shifting this ingrained pattern will create ripples, not only within yourself, but also within those who benefited from your former, more readily available self. Conscious unavailability is the bedrock of self-determination. When you say no to the incessant demands of the world, you are unequivocally saying yes to yourself. When you withdraw from toxic environments, you are affirming that your inner peace holds greater value than any superficial connection. And when you cease the endless cycle of explanation, you begin to command a deeper level of respect, even if it comes from a select few. However, not everyone is prepared for this shift in your presence. Your emotional unavailability will inevitably expose wounds they prefer to keep hidden. It will reveal the extent to which they relied on your emotional responsiveness to maintain their own sense of equilibrium. It is at this juncture that the rupture often occurs, and with the rupture comes the potential for pain, loneliness, and a sense of estrangement, the feeling of losing something when, in reality, you are actively freeing yourself. But what follows this distancing? What emerges from the silence? In the final part, we will explore this profound transformation, the rebirth that can only occur when you possess the courage to be misunderstood, to stand alone, and to ultimately become whole on your own terms. It's time to understand why the solitude of the strong is often the most direct path to true liberation. When you cease being readily available to everyone, a profound shift begins to occur. Thanks for watching. If this resonated, please like this video and subscribe to stay updated. I look forward to continuing this journey with you. Until next time, take care and be present.